to another episode of Connected Conversations, and I'm so thrilled to be with Richard with us today. Richard, how are you? It's so good to have you with us.
I am, you know what? I want to say I am well. I am well in heart,
Yeah.
but I have a toddler, so there is a cold either on its way out or coming in. It's just a regular procession.
I
So
love that. I love that. It's the jungle that it becomes when you are in toddler world. I hear this so commonly from all of my other friends who have toddlers as well.
yeah.
It will be good to hear. I love that you've told us that you've got a toddler. Tell us a little bit about you. I always feel it's always best when our guests introduce themselves.
Hi everybody. My name is Richard Babatunde Odufisan. I am a D&I leader by trade and profession, but at heart, I'm really just. I am a father and a husband. I am a worship leader. I'm trying to think how else. Who am I? Like that. This was one of the fun
Big question.
questions,
Big question.
right? It was one of the fun questions that I really need to get that I had to get into. And yeah, so as much as I enjoy my job and I care about it, really the person I am is in the father and the husband and the worship leader. So those are the main bits of me.
I love that you've introduced it that way, and you've kind of also posed a bit of a question even in that kind of introduction, because a lot of the time we're spending so much of our times on LinkedIn, on social media, like perpetuating apparently an authentic self, because that's what the society demands. Be authentic, be real. I want to see if that's your brand. And now there's like, what does that actually mean now? Because if I'm putting my actual heart and soul, or a version of that that is appealing to society on social media, is that really all that there is? And the way that you've described it is like, I'm kind of not just that. And I think people are kind of trying to find, what does that mean? What should I be holding on to as part of me that is not for my public platforms? And what's the me that's actually really me? And I need to be good at being sacred and protecting that.
No, absolutely. I think the big thing that I 100% endorse is that bring as much of yourself as you feel comfortable to each situation. The idea of bring your whole self to work was always a myth and a fantasy that never existed. And even now, when you talk about, oh yeah, we want to be authentic on LinkedIn and stuff, I know that for the majority of 2024, my LinkedIn was a fraud, a sham, absolute
I
lie.
love the transparency. This is going to be a great conversation.
So yeah, that authenticity really is. I think it is really important to be able to know who you are outside of your job, outside of your accolades, outside of the material things that you've gained, and just like who are you within yourself
Right.
when all of that gets stripped away.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back to this point. That was so juicy. That was awesome. But as we're still kind of in the kind of scope of just initial thoughts and comments, it'd be lovely to hear about, you already mentioned already about what you were like a year ago. 2024 was literally kind of yesterday. We're still in January, which is
I know,
wild.
right?
And already it feels like we are, gung-ho, let's go 2025. But you've mentioned that sounded like it's been quite a journey and evolution for you, about this demand about being authentic in the workplace. I'd love to hear some of your pivotal moments or experiences that kind of shaped the journey that you've come to, even within your work, and were these directions planned, or did you just find yourself there? I'd love to hear some more about that journey.
Yeah, I'm not the person who had the 5-10 year career plan. Um, I think if I start right at the beginning, I got into my working career
Mm.
because I played too much in year 12. That's that's the reality of it. I loved drama, so I with Nigerian parents, I kind of made this unofficial pact. I was like, look, I want to become an actor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to uni, I'm going to get that degree, and then once I'm done, you leave me alone to pursue my dream of acting.
Oh, I would have paid money to have been there for that conversation. Please tell me
Yeah.
how that went.
Oh yeah, no. They looked at me like, okay, sure, Jad. Yeah, you do that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but what it meant was year 12 for me was another year of just drama. I did, I think, in between year 12 and year 13, I did a musical, two plays. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I'm like, where did I think I had time? I didn't.
But like you were committed. That is not a small undertaking. So you didn't just say, I'm gonna do that. Because a lot of the time when we're at that age, like, I'm gonna do this, and we're like, do you know what steps to take? You actually committed and did what you needed to do. That's impressive.
Yeah, impressive in itself.
Okay.
If you ask me how it contributed to my UCAS applications, the answer is negatively.
Oh my goodness.
Like I was a good student academically, but
Mm,
I took my eye off the ball, stopped focusing, and it just meant that year 13 was tough. For
mm.
all of the hard work I'd done to get good grades by the end of it, I didn't have any uni offers.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I actually, Deloitte had come to both the grammar school I'd been at, which is St. Olave's, and the school I'd been at for GCSE as well. And it just happened to be God was like, listen, I have put these people in your path. Don't miss it. Don't miss it twice. Um, so I applied for their gap year scheme, not knowing anything about Deloitte, not knowing anything about what professional services meant, but just knowing I needed something to fill a year in between applying again.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, God knew what he was doing because that's where I needed to be. I suddenly discovered, oh, there's a whole world here. One, knowing which jobs I didn't want to do because I was in the actuarial department and
mm,
genuinely have so much love for all of my friends who stayed in actuarial, but that really was not my destiny. There's there's a level of love for maths that you need to be
mm,
an actuary that just wasn't in my heart at the time. Um, but the joy of knowing what I didn't want to do is it meant that it opened up all of the other possibilities of what I might want to do. So I tried people consulting, which I didn't want to do at the time because I felt like it was just laying people off.
mm.
I tried finance. I tried uh, one other area, and then I landed in tech consulting,
Wow.
which yeah, suddenly I'm like, yeah, this is me. I love
You're
the
very, very
gadgets.
far away from drama in tech consulting, right?
I still believe that consulting is really just acting in a corporate setting.
Fair. Very fair. Okay.
Like we just pretend to know what we're talking about until the point that we do. That's that is the consultant's life.
Mm,
But it really, yeah, again, it opened up a whole new world for me. That what I've really enjoyed is wherever I've landed, I've been able to just go for it and really immerse myself in it and commit to it.
mm,
Um, and I believed that my route was going to be come in as a grad, make it all the way to partner, and demonstrate it can be done, that kind of thing. And I was on that route until 3 years in. 3 years
mm,
in, I'd been promoted twice after graduation. Um, and then in that third year, I worked myself to the bone. I was on a project that didn't make sense. The clients weren't cooperating with each other, let alone with us. The project wasn't moving. And in my head, I'd built up this idea that I had to be the one to fix it. Like
mm,
I progressed all this much. It has to be me. It's on me. Um, got to the end of that performance year and nothing had changed. And in my head, that was a failure. So I was assuming, I told myself the story that my manager was looking at me like a failure. And it was, yeah, I was this close to being dropped off the project. So when he spoke to me and said, Richard, you've done such a great job. We couldn't have done this without you. It just didn't make sense in my brain. And I just broke down. Um, that was my first experience with burnout properly. Um, but yeah, to the point that I was so convinced that I'd done a terrible job and I needed to work harder and work harder and work harder. I think on that project, my worst day was I got in before 8 o'clock, so I don't remember if it was right at 7 or like 7:30 ish, and I didn't leave the office until after 1. Just and it wasn't like everyone was doing it. It was just me trying to force my way through. Um, what that did though was open my eyes really clearly to the fact that this wasn't a healthy environment for me.
Mm.
And that hyper focus on just progression and promotion was not healthy for me. And if I continued, I would make myself unwell to the point that I wouldn't be able to actually enjoy any of the achievements. Um, so that played a really big part in my mentality shift when it came to what I wanted for my career. And it gave me permission to slow down a little bit more. So by the time I got to manager, I knew what I had been through. And so the way I led my teams was impacted by that. I made sure that I wanted people to have the good things that I'd had because of my quick progression, but without the pressures that led to the negative outcomes. And the more I leaned into that, I kind of found myself in the spaces around DEI leaders and
Mm.
understanding. I realized that today DEI is obviously it's a taboo word. I'm not sure if we're still
Mixed
allowed to say
reviews.
it. But yeah, I found myself in that space, and yeah, again, it's one of those moments where you go, "This is where I'm supposed to be now." Um, I don't think I'd have been ready for it if I hadn't burnt out. I don't think I'd have been ready for it if I hadn't had all of the experiences that led up to it. Um, so yeah, moved into that world internally, slowly but surely started drifting across. Did uh, a secondment into HR within Deloitte before moving out to do a full time role at a company called Wave as their first DEI lead. Then I had 11 months, uh, 11 months out of work before starting this latest project at Somerset House. But yeah, the plan clearly, if I had one, it was not a good one.
I think
Uh,
so much of what you said there, I think people will relate to. I think more often than not, I've heard so many. I think similar, not the same. Obviously, people have got their own journeys, but that parallel of like the drive and expectation to show success and productivity is such a huge burden and such a huge drive behind people's why. And very soon they find that this why it's actually quite empty when they get there. The cost of that, if
mm,
that's your goal, just promotion, just productivity, what do I have to show for it, is the cost of health, like you said, well-being on so many levels. And then people asking themselves, but why now? Why? What's
yeah,
this really for? What have I really gained? Yes, maybe some titles, maybe some promotion, maybe some new reputation, and maybe some financial gain, which is always very helpful. We love that. But it's like it really, you find people in that particular moment where it's gone quite challenging or it's cost them so much the way you've described, they realize even that wasn't worth it because
mm,
I'm now at a loss. How would you encourage, like, I love how you mentioned like this really transformed your leadership style. How would you encourage others that maybe are kind of on that journey and find themselves getting into this rat race? How do I say stop? Like, it felt like life kind of stopped you, but is there a way that we can maybe control that a little bit in terms of our experience?
yeah. I actually I don't dissuade anyone or discourage anyone from chasing promotions or chasing titles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the way I've reframed it is I want all of us to have the opportunity to be successful, whatever success looks like for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason why I put that caveat on is because success could look like having a really good title. It could look like getting promoted. It could look like getting to a certain level of salary, or it could just look like earning enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to spend time with your family, or earning enough, or being in a role that allows you to have balance in your life and allows you to do exercise X times a week, or allows you to go to church, or allows you to do whatever it is that would be your definition of a successful life at that moment. And the way that we prevent life from getting in the driving seat is by constantly checking in with ourselves and going, actually, is this still what success means to me? Because, yeah, at the start of my career, I was young, I was single. Success looked like being being off on client site every week and being able to talk about the glamorous locations and the glamorous lifestyle, phenomenal.
Mm.
Now I feel so uncomfortable at the idea of being away from my wife and my son for too long. Like, it's not, this is where home is, this is where happiness is. So for me, that's what success looks like. And it doesn't mean that previous definitions are no longer successful, but it just means that I'm in control and I'm regularly checking in on myself to go, who's in the driving seat? What's the objective? Does this objective still
Yeah.
bring me that sense of fulfillment and contentment?
Mm. Mm. That's really amazing. Such invaluable words of wisdom there. I think we need to, I think, also be intentional about making sure that we're taking those internal checkpoints. Like, no one else is actually going to do it for you. If you can give more to the world, it'll just take more, right? And then we can feel disenchanted and feel a little bit hard done by. But actually, there is so much more in our control of how we can determine what that process and experience looks and feels like based on what you just said, which I think is really, really powerful. I want to talk about, just circle back to something else that you said in this amazing kind of intro that you shared about your journey. Was you then found yourself in D&I. You found it. It's not like I'm so passionate about it, I've had excellent experiences. I wondered, outside of the fact that it just happenstance came upon you, was there anything else about maybe your own upbringing or roots that kind of, or personal experience that kind of influenced when you got to your role within D&I, that you started to source from there and actually like, this is actually the right place for me, and I didn't know that all the things that I may have gone through or experienced before was going to
Mm.
contribute to the moment?
Yeah, so I think there's a few key moments that stand out for me. Is the one, getting back into Deloitte in the first place. I think it was a lot of grace that got me there. But when I did get in, I was one of 7 black graduates within consulting out of an intake of 200. So we knew each other, we knew where we were. By the time I made it to senior consultant, which is 3 years later, I think out of those 7, we maybe had 2, 3 left. By the time I got to manager, there were 2 of us, uh, and even looking around, the challenge we had was that we couldn't see who our role models were going to be in terms of other black people.
Mm,
So getting into it, I always like to be honest and say I got into DI for selfish reasons. I think most people do, right? You look around and you go, actually, how is this impacting my experience? And
mm,
what can I do to advocate for myself
mm,
before I then think about how I advocate for other people? Um, and yeah, starting there and thinking about the pressure again. I like to put pressure on myself, but the pressure I put on myself was I have to keep going and keep progressing, even if it's at a slower rate, to show other people that it can be done. I may not have a role model, but I want to make sure that the people coming after me do. Um, and what was great about it is when you start, I feel like when you start doing the work seriously,
mm,
you realize the parallels between your experience and the experience of women in the workplace and the experience of people from other uh, underrepresented demographics in the workplace. And you see how much more work is needed and how much more efficient it is and effective to actually just take that step up and go, how about we change the rules, redesign the system so that everyone gets that fair shot
mm.
instead of each individual group trying to fight their own battles alone?
Yeah, that's really amazing. And in this space, it sounded like you found yourself like, okay, there's no one who's the first in the room. I'll be the first in the room. Did you find that there was kind of any kind of unexpected outcomes as a result of like, this is different terrain? Even though I didn't have a reference, I'm now a reference, and now I need to navigate so many unvariables that I can't even pitch because it's like figuring it out in the dark. Did you find anything that was kind of interesting or like unexpected when you got there?
Um, yeah. So I think it's so different being on the outside of the industry, where you are trying to put pressure on HR and leadership from the outside of the club and be like, why can't you just create more roles? Why can't you just pay people more? Why can't you just? And there's a lot of the technical skill that goes into people work overall. So understanding the different legal restrictions, understanding the different structural restrictions you have to work with, understanding even just how many people are demanding their attention and their time. I think when I first took on the role at Wave, especially, I was really naive about how much work it takes to design new systems that are effective in the face of resistance. Like, I think it's ridiculous to pretend that, yeah, we're working in this utopia where everyone just gets it and the only challenge is thinking about how you redesign the system. There are lots of people who don't get it. There are lots of people who get it and are actively against it, that you've got to navigate them, as well as the divergent demands that are put on by the different groups. Like I said, most people will get into this selfishly, caring about what matters to them. And I don't say selfish in a negative way, but it is that what about me focus. And in order to design systems that work well for everyone, there are going to be times where each particular demographic can't be the focus, and having to navigate that and make the argument that it is still a good thing for you that we are doing this, even if we're not directly looking at you, not necessarily looking after, but looking at you in this moment. We're still thinking of you. You still matter. We're doing this for your good. It's a
Yeah.
parallel of being a parent, to be fair.
No, that's so important to consider. I think everything that you just said right there. I'd love to know, in terms of you've navigated all of that kind of the challenges, really questioning your why in terms of, I'm here because of my story, but now actually now that I'm here, it's actually becoming about everybody's story and everybody else that might be in a position of marginalization, or it's just not quite fair in the trajectory that perhaps in comparison to other groups. How have you kind of kept a sense of sanity and just like sticking to the cause, because that cannot be easy when it consistently feels like you're constantly on an incline, or
Yeah.
like you said before, it's not utopic. You'll encounter people that don't see it as a problem, don't see that they need to actually be committed for change to really be effective. How do you find yourself still being committed to the mission?
Um, so when I first started doing this work, I didn't have boundaries in place that were particularly effective. So I remember one Friday night, it was maybe 7, 8, and someone called me from work because they had an issue that they were dealing with. Um, they had an issue that they were dealing with, and I took the call on a Friday evening, when at that time it was just me and my wife. We just gotten married, like, and it wasn't a light call. It was someone complaining. That's unfair. It was someone telling me that they'd been put on a PIP, and as you can imagine, the emotional weight of that on a Friday evening, trying to encourage them and then not take that into my weekend as well, was tough. What I've had to do more now, and what I've learned how to do, is recognize that no matter how much you care about it, you're not the savior. Um, and it is an ego thing where you want to be the one to fix everything. You want to be the one who people call and say, yeah, I couldn't have done this without Richard. Great for the ego, terrible for the mental health. So I did need to accept that fact and remind myself that the people who aren't necessarily looking to me for work support are equally as deserving of my time and attention.
Mm.
And so I need to give them that respect and give them that, yeah, honor their time as much as I honor work, and give them that respect that comes with me being fully focused on them and shutting down work when work time's over.
Yeah, yeah. And now that you've been here for some time, how long have you kind of been operating in the D&I space?
So I want to say officially this would be year 6 in September.
That's a long time. It's a long
Yeah.
time. And now that you've been like you've encountered so many different variables, different challenges. Well, now that you're actually in kind of like the field, what has a vision kind of evolved for you and the kind of impact that you'd like to see?
Yeah. I feel like the first few years was really playing catch up. So coming from a non-traditional HR background, it was how do I learn HR to the point that I understand what I like about it, what I don't like about it. Um, the last couple of years, especially, has been me thinking more intentionally about actually how do I want to do this
Mm,
differently that is my way. And it may not be, it may not align with what everyone else does sometimes. So I think an example of that is I am, I don't care about the term DEI.
mm,
It feels like over the last few months and years, there has been news article after news article, both sides going, DEI is evil. No, DEI is good. And I'm like, I don't care about the term DEI. If people want to have a fight and a battle over the term and whether it's a good term or a negative term,
mm,
let them have it. Let them say that the term is terrible, and let them have that as their win. I don't care. They can hold the names.
mm,
What I want is for us to deliver on an inclusive people experience, and what is our philosophy around that. So when I talk about the inclusive people experience, what it means is wherever you are, every single company knows what it is that they want to deliver,
mm, mm,
and they should define that. So, what is the experience that every single person who comes to work for you should have, right? Now, first step of that is you set your line in the sand and be ready for the fact that it might mean that
mm,
some people won't want to buy into that, right?
mm.
Some people will hear this is the experience you're trying to deliver. Okay, cool. That's not for me. And be comfortable with it. I think there's a weird fear for a lot of companies around the idea of pushing people away, in air quotes, but you're not going to please everyone and still remain authentic. Set your standard, say what experience you're trying to deliver, let that be your guiding principle.
Mm, mm,
And then I'm also not a fan of loads of initiatives for initiative's sake. Don't target
mm,
this demographic
mm.
because it looks good or because that's what everyone else is doing. Focus on your experience that you're trying to deliver,
Mm.
measure that experience, and
Yeah.
work out which groups aren't having that experience. That's how you design your initiatives. You find
Yeah.
out who's having an experience gap, and your initiatives are specifically designed to close gaps,
Mm.
nothing else. Right? It's not about looking good. It's not about the PR. It's not about trying to keep up with your peers.
Yeah.
Do what your people need in terms of closing the gap to the experience that you promised. So if that means that everyone else is doing this great new form of leave and you're the only one not doing it because it doesn't actually impact your people, cool.
Mm, mm,
Be
mm.
confident in it.
Love
But
that.
then the flip side of it that I don't think everyone's on board with yet is because you promised that experience to everyone,
Mm,
that includes people in majority demographics,
mm,
right? So even if as a demographic, your white male employees are doing great, if there is someone within that demographic who is experiencing an experience gap from what you promised, you need to make sure that all of your managers are able to close those personal gaps with the same level of focus, same level of intensity, so that everyone gets that experience.
Yeah, I
Like,
love
it's
that.
unpopular maybe, but
But yet
it's
probably the
my
most effective to see some kind of impact and change. And also it encourages and invokes a different level of moral responsibility, that it's everybody's challenge to get us there. And
yes.
I think what you're saying is like sometimes that might get lost in the hype of what has now become the drive for DEI. Whose agenda can we push forward the most? And it's a PR stunt rather than, are we effectively closing the gaps? And what does that really look like logistically against challenge, against the
Mm,
fact that actually you need to find others that don't look like you to buy in and find a way to build really good relationships and bridges, because it will impact the entire kind of vehicle towards the change. So you sharing that, I think, makes so much sense. I want to just segue a little bit in terms of, you've got, it's so clear from your work and what you're describing about what your work means to you, just how it makes sense that you've been recognized for it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your stretch list recognition, winner, Empower 100 list, referee. Like, I'd love to know, what do these things mean to you when you hear that? Listening to you today and hearing your story, it makes sense as to why you are sitting in this class, should I say? But what do those mean for you?
uh, this is probably the most uncomfortable question.
I'm so happy that I got there.
uh, so I am hugely appreciative
Mhm.
of all of the recognition and the accolades, because I think that's the first thing I have to do, is
Mhm.
recognize that it's not a one, it's not a small thing, but two, people don't do it just so they can feel good about themselves, right? They do it because they acknowledge and they recognize, and it's important to them. So I am appreciative of it. I am still very uncomfortable with being the center of attention
Interesting.
for
The
me.
drama guy is like uncomfortable being the center of attention.
So I got into drama because, how deep are we getting? I got into drama
Mhm.
because I didn't like, I was being bullied, so I didn't like being me.
Wow.
Drama gave me the space and the
Be
opportunity to
someone
be
else.
someone else,
Yeah.
and you can just immerse yourself in that character, and that was who they were focused on. They focused on that person's story, and in that you kind of felt there was a purpose to it. And for those few minutes when you were on stage, you weren't dealing with all the things that were in your life. You
Mm.
got to just shine as someone else, and it was incredible. Um, this is one of the things that I've had to work through therapy and support, professionally as well as
Mm.
personally, because what I didn't realize was that I never really dealt with that source of personal challenge, in that fact that the only way I got validation was from external sources.
Mm.
So when I spent 11 months looking for a job and I'm struggling to keep motivating myself and all of that, like, the only way I could maintain my energy, maintain my uh, sense of happiness within myself, was if other people were validating me.
Mm.
And
Mm.
what that meant was I was hesitant to showcase the bad sides of what I was going through, showcase the fact that I needed help, because I didn't want people's opinion of me to drop. Um, so going back to the question about the awards and the accolades, I think I do appreciate them. I find them very difficult to talk about. Um, and yeah, I struggle with them because of that mixture of, yes, it feels great to be recognized,
Mm.
but how much of it is, in my head, I'm asking how much of it is deserved. What am I doing that really is that different? Do I deserve to be in this room? Like, those conversations are the ones that I still need to work through. Um, and I don't know whether the way I work through it is by getting more awards or fewer. Not
We can
sure
have
yet.
more awards. Thank you.
uh, but yeah, it's a fun one. I do think it's cool. I
Yeah,
love being able to say it, as clearly it's on the LinkedIn profile.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a weird relationship.
And I think that tension there is not necessarily a bad thing, because it sounds like you're so reflective in terms of, okay, this is a challenge in terms of probably my humility about like, why am I really here? Because it's the same space where you can be drawn into, okay, my motivation is to get more of those. And we go back to
Mm,
like how we got into the journey with its promotion, having proof of record of productivity. These things kind of fall into that category. But I think the meaning behind what these are signifying is so much deeper. And like you say, it's pulling on so many different parts from the way that you've described it, and that's a fascinating challenge. Again, another thing. So you're not doing drama in what we say that consulting is a little bit like acting. You're obviously pursuing some work that is so invaluable, and even your motivation and approach is inspiring. And like you said, may not be popular or maybe controversial in approach. But then you've also got this other layer to all of that. Tales from the Plantation podcast. Tell us
yeah.
about that, and how does that kind of play into all of this stuff that we've been learning about you?
Tails is interesting because I started off as a listener. So my friends started the pod, and I'd be listening. I was like, do you know what? When you said that, I had a really strong opinion about it. And so he said, "Come on, join the pod, be a guest." Um, did it, and 7 years later,
Wow.
we, I know, right? 7 years later, we're still going. I've taken over hosting the pod, and yeah, really having a great space to talk about, because I've not spoken anything about what the pod is about. Talk about the experiences of being black in the workspace,
Mm,
but particularly from our positions as admittedly more middle class now black people who are also Christian. So there was a real dynamic that we felt we
mm,
weren't getting from other podcasts at the time.
okay.
Um, I think when we came into it, there was a bit of the ego and the arrogance of they're not talking about the real topics. We should come in. Um,
I appreciate your honesty. I really do. Let's call it what it is.
that's where we came from. I think where we've matured is recognizing that there is an audience for all of these different pods,
Mm,
and the different voices, and they're all important. Uh, the key thing is for us to be intentional about what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, and especially as the world around us continues to present challenges for black people in particular. We think it's important to maintain the conversation and
mm,
give people an alternative to conversations about who pays on the first date, or uh, how many how many girls you can draw at a club and that.
yeah.
But yeah,
Trending topics, but again, Richard is going against the grain. Like, can we actually talk about something different? I appreciate that a lot. I also want to talk about that's obviously like another platform when you get to really engage with some of these really important issues. You're someone who's living the experience. You are the context, and you want to delve in a bit deeper. What have you found has been some of the responses to like kind of like, we're here, if this is what interests you, come and join this community? How have you find responses to that?
it ranges. I think we've got uh, some of us who are active and talk about the pod all the time. Some of us who, because of work, they're just a little bit more cautious around what they share. So for me, I've had people, lots of colleagues who've started listening and just gone every month when we post it. They go, "Oh, this last episode you said this, it was that,"
Mm-hmm.
or Nezzy said this, or Harry said this, and I think it's just fun to be able to give space for the different opinions and experiences, even even in these most common topics. Like last month, the one that's just gone out, we spoke about the experience of working in corporate spaces as Black people, and the difference in journeys and how you navigate the expectations, similar to what we've been talking about, like navigating the expectations of how fast should I be going? How do I manage comparison when I see other people zooming through and I feel like I'm slow? How you manage that with relationships and like being able to navigate that. In previous episodes, we've spoken about is Black History Month still necessary? Is it still relevant with the way it's done? We've spoken about the experience of Black entrepreneurship, the evolving relationship of the Black community with religion.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we've seen over time that while with our parents' generations, it was more of a default. If you were Black, you had some sort of religion.
It's quite
And
cultural. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
that's what
cultural
you did at the
religion. Yeah.
weekend. And it's not the same anymore. That those personal journeys and the experiences, whether it's due to being in this country, whether it's due to experiences in church that pushed people out, and really just exploring how that affects people and their relationship to it as well.
That's amazing. I love that so much, and really important topics to be covering. Richard, this has been an incredible conversation. I've really taken so much from it. And before we close off, I just wanted to ask you one or two things. Like, if you had some advice just for young aspiring leaders to kind of get to the places that you are sitting, and
Mm.
also through, I think there's just been so much integrity about your approach as to how you are embracing your work. And you're honest about, like, it wasn't always like that. It's become this because I found the value and the meaning there. What would be your advice to someone who's looking like, I know that I want to be like that, but I'm so
Mm.
further down the line of just about, got off the start mark.
Do you know what? I think the most important thing is don't look around at what other people are doing. There is no set time for when your success should happen. Like, one thing that I always did, I was terrible for it, was when I first got into DEI, I'm looking at people who are 5, 10 years ahead of me and going, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. That's exactly what I should be doing. And it's a false equivalence that is just going to end up with me feeling bad about myself and what I've achieved. Um, so yeah, the first thing is don't look at me and think that I am some kind of target or some kind of aspiration. I've been very fortunate to achieve what I've achieved, but I've also made many mistakes. I have done things that, yeah, were a waste of time because I tried to jump before I was ready. Equally, it makes you sad. Comparison is the thief of joy. Where what I do say to do. So my new mantra for this year is the objective is better. So whatever it is you want to achieve, your objective for today is to be better than yesterday.
Yeah.
If yesterday, and just not what someone else did, what you did. If yesterday was a good day, awesome. Your objective for today is better. If yesterday was a bad day, doesn't matter. The objective for today is better. Even if it is one step better and that is all you achieve, that is your aim. And the great thing is, because you're not looking at, oh, it has to be continually linear. Every day you just want to be better. If that means you have 10 consecutive good days and each of them is better than the last, amazing. If you have 8 consecutive good days, 2 consecutive bad days, but today is better, amazing. You're back in the direction you want. So that for me is the focus. The objective is better.
I love that so much. I think it's such a good place to end this conversation. Like, better than yesterday, just be better. What an objective. And I think that encapsulates and encompasses like every area, not just professionally.
Yeah.
Richard, it's been incredible to talk to you. Thank you so much for being with us on Connecting Conversations, and wishing you all of the best and way more awards for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Carla, thank you for having me. The host does all the hard work.
Looking forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.